Hello, and welcome to this live interview series showcasing Supplier Diversity here. I'm your host, Sandra D'Souza, and I'm the CEO and founder of Ellect, a digital marketplace connecting small businesses with corporate buyers and every transaction funds gender equality project. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're very fortunate that we're going to have a conversation with Callum Laing. He's here as the CEO of MBH Corporation, and he's going to talk to us about his work ensuring diversity in companies. Callum, thank you so much for joining us here on the live interview today.
Hey, Sandra, it's a pleasure. It's nice to catch up. It's been about 5 years since we first met, I think.
It has been, and I can see that a lot has been going on. But before we start, just for our audience, tell us, for those who do follow me, know that I don't read out bios. I always like the personal touch. I'm very much a people person. So Callum, why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. So born in New Zealand, grew up in the UK, and I've been living in Asia for the last 20 years. And always kind of been entrepreneurial. So always as a kid hustling, doing little bits and pieces, had an ice cream business when I was a young teen, selling homemade ice cream to restaurants and bars in Cambridge in the UK.
Wow.
And then just kind of built from there. I had a recruitment company at the height of the dot-com boom, which went very well. And of course, at the tender age of 22, 23, I kind of thought that was all down to my unique talents. And then the dot-com bubble burst, and I discovered I wasn't nearly as talented as I thought. But by then I'd kind of ruined myself in terms of getting a real job. And so I've spent the last 20 plus years starting, building, and ultimately buying and selling small businesses.
That's amazing. So you're ultimate, like the serial entrepreneur. You can't get any more serial than that.
Yeah, I mean, generally that just means you fail lots, I think. But
no, but I was thinking more about the passion in that way, that how much you love this whole entrepreneurial journey. So I guess we're both, like you said, we met 5 years ago, and since then, you've been following your journey with what you've been up to. Tell us, I guess, about MBH and the business that you're in.
Yeah, so like I said, I'd been starting lots of businesses. Some had been successful, some hadn't been as successful. But one of my contacts, a good friend of mine, Jeremy Harbour, had been buying and selling businesses for a lot longer than I had. And we had been chatting and connecting and worked on a few projects. And both of us had noticed a problem that we had as small business owners, and Jeremy came up with a potential solution which he bounced off me, and as soon as he voiced this idea, it really resonated. And so consequently that's what we've sort of poured the last 6 years into, and it's really about helping successful small businesses to get over or get through the glass ceiling that small businesses face. So small businesses are penalized for being small. You can't win big contracts when you're a small business. Procurement of big companies just won't give you those contracts. It's very difficult to recruit good senior staff. You don't have the resources, so it's not a fair fight with big companies. So you kind of get locked into this sort of below the glass ceiling on that in that regard. The second one, the second element we're both very conscious of, is if you're a small business owner, you have created a ton of value in the world. You've, especially if you're a successful small business owner, you're clearly creating value for your clients. You're clearly creating value for your team and their families. And then you have a whole ecosystem of suppliers and partners and landlords that all extract value because you get up and build this business every day. But typically, there's only one person that doesn't get to extract a commensurate amount of value from the business, and that's the business owner. Not only do we not take much money out of the business, we're constantly putting money back into the business. And And that's fine. That's kind of the entrepreneurial deal that we sign up to, which is we create value for everyone, and at some point in the future, we get a reward for it. But eventually, in every entrepreneur's journey, you wake up one day and you go, "Hang on, everyone else seems to be making more money out of this gig than I am," and that's a very frustrating point. And at that point, you tend to look around and you say, "Well, what are my options?" And if you've been in business for any length of time, you've kind of given up on that idea that someone's just going to hand you a suitcase of business, buy your company, and you can walk off into the distance. It doesn't work like that. And really, the number one kind of solution to that problem is to sell your business to a bigger player in the industry. And that's how most businesses kind of transition. But it's not a particularly good solution for the entrepreneurs, because invariably those deals are structured as a 3-year or a 5-year earnout for the business owner. Now, the problem with that is that us business owners don't make very good employees. We're not very good at being told what to do, especially when it comes to our own business. So anyone that's been in business for any length of time will have seen someone sell their business to a bigger player. You get all the headlines, it looks fantastic. And then 6 months later or 12 months later, they've been fired from their own company, or they've quit in disgust because it wasn't what they signed up for. And that's really, that's not a good solution. If you've poured 20 years of your life into creating value for others, that's a pretty miserable way to end the journey. And so the idea that we've been working on and building for the last 6 years is to create a publicly listed company exclusively for the use of good, well-run, profitable small businesses. And in effect, what happens is the small business owners swap their private equity for public equity, but they keep full control over their business. So it's their brand, it's their hiring, it's their firing, it's their culture. They don't need to run decisions past anyone. They keep running it the way they always have. But now when they go to pitch for business, they're a big multinational global PLC, not a small company. So they win much bigger contracts. When it comes to recruiting or retaining good talent, they've got stock options. They've got much more resource in order to do so. And in fact, they can even use our methodology and our model to go out and do their own acquisitions, to start buying up their competitors or their suppliers and grow like that. So it's really it was really designed from the bottom up to solve a problem for small business owners. But inadvertently, it also solves a problem for the financial markets, because you've got trillions of dollars washing around in the financial markets. 50% of the world's GDP is locked up in small business. 90% of private sector employment is locked up in small business. And yet there's no tool, there's no financial instrument for Wall Street or the city or the big finance guys to invest in small businesses. Small businesses are too risky, they're too illiquid. Yet if you put a group of small businesses into a publicly listed wrapper, in effect, it now means investors can put money into and out of that group with the freedom of a normal public stock, but they've got the diversity of all these different businesses. So that's kind of the model in a nutshell. The group that we currently have is called MBH, which rather boringly stands for multiple business holdings. It's been rechristened by some in the media as mini Berkshire Hathaway, which is quite funny.
Oh, really? Well, that's actually not a bad thing.
That's great. I'll take that all day. So we're a UK PLC. We're listed on the Frankfurt main market and also on the New York OTCQX. And we've got, as of today, we've got 25 companies in the group. We've got companies in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, the US, and they're all just good, well-run small businesses. I think the average age of the companies is about 23 years old. So they're grown-up companies. We're not sort of taking up
not baby companies or toddlers.
No. So that's what we do. It's a great concept for small businesses, I think.
I think that's fantastic. And Callum, there's a few things that you said when you were like describing, I mean, the reasons and the journey of you establishing MBH is what Ellect also does, is recognizing that the small businesses are the backbone for a lot of the economies, and how much the owner put in their, sweat and blood, tears into their business, and hard work, and not being able to realize that in a financial way. So I'm really, really pleased to hear how, I mean, and it's one of the things that also when we met those few years ago, I remember the journey, and I actually got your signed copy of the book about it. And see, this is a great way of unlocking the value and the assets for small businesses, and have them to be able to be in the same playing field as larger companies as well.
Yeah, in fact, just on that, if you want, I can put a free link to a copy of that book in the comments, or however you do it on the live stream, so that your viewers can get a copy of that book.
I'll grab the link and I'll put it in as part of the post, so then they can always see that. Thanks, Callum. Look at that, everybody. There's a free book for you just by watching this as well. So now let's get into the meaty stuff, and that is about the diversity. Our journey here is twofold, actually. Supplier diversity, appreciating the range of the different backgrounds, so whether they're women-owned, Black-owned, minority, but we're also embracing regionally based businesses, as well as LGBTQ and family-owned, because all of them are very much are just as important, and the diversity helps us understand the variety of backgrounds that goes into small businesses. So when we first spoke about, the work that I'm doing, you talked about your own journey with MBH in making sure there's diversity in business. Would you like to share that with us? And I guess one of the reasons why you're here, because I would like you to share that with us, on how you got this started, and what you've implemented, and what's working, what's not working, the whole thing around it.
Yeah, I think look, it bugs me that in 2021 this is still a conversation.
I know.
Look, I think when you're an entrepreneur, or certainly my experience as an entrepreneur, and those in my world, is you don't have the luxury to hold biases. It's not a commercially viable solution, and especially when as I've bounced around different countries. I've owned businesses in multiple different countries and continents, and you just work with the best talent that you can. And it's interestingly, the one that I kind of focused on very early on in my career was employing more women. And I actually went years and years ago, I said, look, this is really a secret weapon for small businesses, is you've got this massive workforce of mums that are sat at home. Big companies won't hire them because they want them in the office at 8 a.m. and they want to stay until 7 p.m. and do that. Small businesses shouldn't need that kind of restriction. And so I remember talking about this years ago as like this amazing resource that I'd sort of stumbled into, which is if you put out job descriptions and you say, I don't mind where the work gets done or when the work gets done, as long as the work gets done, you suddenly tap into this huge workforce that the big corporates were neglecting. Now that I think has been changed a little bit, but not as much as it should have after COVID. I think that woke up the big corporates to this opportunity and so that's a fantastic thing, because there was so much talent being wasted. I mean, the one that stood out to me, I met a woman at one of my kids' parties, and she was incredibly talented, had a master's degree, 10 years with KPMG, and she had 3 kids, was bored silly at home, couldn't get any work with the big companies. And I said, well, come and do some work for us. And I remember we talked to her, started talking about the work, and I reached out to her afterwards and said, look, we don't have a huge budget, but this is what we'd be willing to pay. And she went, you'll pay? I just want to speak to grown-ups.
Yes, I so can relate to that. Yeah.
She became an incredibly valuable part of our business, but that was like a huge opportunity. And so we'd always said, myself and Jeremy had always said, look, when we create boards of directors, we want to have at least 50% women on the board. We currently have that.
Excellent.
And it surprises me the pushback that we got both from men and women about that. And the old argument with boards is, and this is why the system is so closed, is people only want people on their boards that have board experience. Of course you just end up with groups of old white men.
The same group.
But whether it's employees or whether it's board of directors, you've actually got no idea whether someone's going to be a great board of director or a mediocre or a terrible board of director until you bring someone on. So we were suddenly in a position where we're creating our own companies. We can bring our own people onto the board. So we said, right, we want at least 50% women on the board. And that's worked incredibly well for us. And of course, we've ended up with some great people. We then looked at, in terms of increasing diversity, and I've introduced you to Lisa from Bern in the UK, who is working on getting Black representation on board. So what we said is, okay, we will bring Lisa herself onto our board as a board apprentice, so that she can get that experience. And now we're working with Lisa specifically on, okay, how do we bring more Black-owned businesses or non-white-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses into the group? And look, what we want is good businesses in the group. And social proof is one of the most powerful factors in business. So women run businesses are much more likely to join our group if they can meet and talk with other women-owned businesses in the group. Minority-run businesses are much more likely to join. So it's, all the correctness out of the side, it's commercially, it makes sense. And it makes sense to lower barriers to entry, to make concessions to favor diverse businesses because of the knock-on effect it has. And then, of course, everything about our business, it's not just about diversity of race or gender, it's diversity of ideas. Fundamentally, the best entrepreneurial solutions come when you can take ideas from different sectors. And we have a group of 25 businesses with, we're across 5 countries, 8 different industries. And to the financial world, again, they don't really understand that. They want, well, what have a construction company and an education company got in common? But what's interesting is that there's so much best practice in small businesses that you can share and learn from. And in that particular instance, one of the construction industry, like one of the biggest problems the construction industry around the world has, is bringing in entry-level staff. It's not, it's actually incredibly well paid. There's a good career path, but it's not considered particularly exciting industry compared to, tech and those things. So construction guys are struggling with that to bring people in. And they recognize that it's, especially in the UK where we have a lot of our businesses, it's a very white field. And so they said, okay, look, we want to find a way to encourage more minorities into the trade because we need bodies, and why not? And the education businesses in our group. So, well, look, we do adult vocational training. So why don't we work together to set up a program to train minorities to get into the construction industry? And once they see more people like them working in the construction industry, it will build from there. So it's
That's
not
amazing.
just, and look, there's tons of stuff like that. I mean, even again, not on diversity, but we own a bunch of taxi companies, minicab companies, and one of the biggest things that their drivers were struggling with is it takes too long between doing a fare to receiving the money in your bank account. I mean, they were doing it like every 2 weeks, but if you've got to pay for insurance, you've got to pay for fuel, and you're struggling anyway, that's a long time. And so you end up not doing fares, which so basically what the taxi guys did is said, well, look, we will create an app where as soon as you've done a fare, you can draw down against your salary. So you can draw down money, and that suddenly solves a cash problem for drivers. And they were talking about that in one of our monthly calls, and the construction guys were saying, well, look, we've got exactly the same problem in our industry. Can we use that app and work with you? So diversity of ideas is critical to business success. And I think anyone that puts walls in place is ultimately shooting themselves in the foot.
Callum, I think that's fantastic, because I do get asked, especially with the work that we're doing with Ellect, whether having supplier diversity or pushing for that seems that it's more of a social cause and not and it's about trying to do good but not seeing the financial impact or the positive impact out of that. And there is research to show that it does help improve on the business profitability. And in your case, essentially with the diversity that you bring into it, with diverse thinking, and having diverse businesses, seeing that how almost like the thinking out of the box, solving problems from different perspective, and sharing solutions as well, thereby benefiting different businesses. And essentially that will improve the bottom line of all the businesses together for MBH, and which then puts in a positive impact into the financial, or into the share price, I would gather.
Yeah, and look, I think what you're doing is fantastic. What Lisa is doing in the UK with the Burn Network is fantastic. And actually, the advice I gave her is that, look, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to anything in business. I'll always try and take the easiest route. So what I'm looking for in terms of the companies that join us or the investors that join us is not to try and change somebody's mind if they've got a hard idea that our model will never work, small business owners can't be trusted, or it's too hard to like, life's too short to go in and try and reason with them and all that sort of stuff. But there's a ton of people out there that can see that there's a problem and desperately want to help, but don't know how to do that. And I think organizations like you're set up that make it easy for those people that have already made the decision that they want to help, they just don't know what are the next steps, is fantastic. And I think that's, again, what Lisa and the Burn Network are doing in the UK. Because what will ultimately happen is you will find the people that want to change. They will work with you. They will get results, and then it will kind of slowly build up. But it's a much easier path than trying to. I gave up a long time trying to convince people if they didn't want to be convinced. That's too hard.
And I know, look, we're running out of time, but I pretty much also feel the same way. Is with Ellect on this journey, I'm really enjoying working with people who are embracing supplier diversity, who wants to make that happen, like yourself. And I also get a lot of people who have tried to talk me out of the gender equality impacts that comes out of Elect's platform, and say, well, I'm not saying no. Look, this is what we're doing. We want to do both. Yes, I know it's like, there's two things we're doing at the same time, but that is just as important. And when you don't worry about convincing those who just want who don't believe in gender equality, it's amazing that when you just focus on the ones who do, how much faster that you move towards the goal, and how much easier and less. And it's nice not to have all that friction as you
Yeah.
make that progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely recommend talking to my colleague, Vicky Sylvester, who's in the UK. So she's done a lot of work in this space, and she's very much driving the ESG side of MBH, and it was her that introduced us to Burn. So she would definitely be a
Excellent.
good guest to have on as well.
Oh, I look forward to trying to. I'll definitely offline get work out how I can get in touch with her. Well, I
Yeah.
guess, like I said, we're running out of time. Thank you, Callum, for very much for being part of this live interview. It was really great to hear the work that you're doing, and how you got here. And I hope this really becomes an inspiration for many businesses who want to do something similar but not sure how to go about it. So thanks for sharing
Thank you.
your work.
Cool. Thank you. It's a
Right.
pleasure.
Thanks. So, everyone, this is Callum Laing from MBH Corporation. And thank you very much for joining the show. My name is Sandra D'Souza, and I hope to see you on Ellect platform. Thanks, everyone. Bye.